Hey. Hello, hello. Good morning, good people. Can I get the audio guys to take it back to the beginning? Looks like we got a technical error. Good morning, everyone. We are so thrilled to be kicking off this morning with you all. I hope you all are well rested and energized and ready to go. I'm Karla, and I'm a product designer like many of you in this room. And I also lead the brand work at the browser company.
And I'm Nash. I lead our storytelling team. Now, some of you in the room may be surprised to hear that the browser company of New York is building a browser. It's called Arc. You can find it on arc.net. But thank you. It's a big bet. It's an audacious one, building a product that billions of people use every day, which is browsers, not Arc just yet, but also building in a space that hasn't changed too much over the past 20-something years. And so this tension, this nature of our product will underpin a lot of Karla and my discussion today. But when we talk about the browser company of New York, this is what we mean. It is 80-something incredible individuals rethinking the ways that we use the internet, dreaming up new ways and better ways that we can use the internet. And so I'll share with you a question that we ask ourselves repeatedly, often, for intellectual honesty, which is how do you build something new in a space that is underlooked, unobserved, sometimes almost invisible? How do you break expectations and reshape them? In a world that loves straight lines, simplicity, barely there, sterility, what does it mean to try and create a product that feels lived in, caring, cared for, considerate? Karla and I have come to call it leaving fingerprints, and so today we'll share 3 examples grounded in brand, design, and stories that are just microcosms of the ways that 80-something people are leaving their fingerprints on the browser that we know and love called Arc.
But before we jump into our own process, I want to talk to you a little bit about what we mean when we say leaving fingerprints. And in order to do so, I want you to come to my neighborhood. So I want you to imagine that you're in New York City, you're downtown, and we're going to hop on the ACBD, and we're going to head uptown. This is Harlem. Pictured here is the great Dizzy Gillespie, a jazz musician very much known for his contributions and development of bebop and modern jazz. I pass this mural often as I'm going down 135th Street, and it's actually quite large. It takes up the whole side of a building, so you kind of have to, crane your neck to see the top of it. But rightly so. I mean, I tend to think that the grand scale of this mural just shows the profound impact that Dizzy Gillespie had on Harlem, as well as the Harlem Renaissance. You see, this is Dizzy leaving his fingerprints on our neighborhood, on our community. It's also the fingerprints of the artist, Brendan Odoms. It's him sharing his creativity, it's him sharing his work, it's his contribution to Harlem. And so when we talk about fingerprints and leaving fingerprints, they don't always have to be large in scale. They could actually be small, like this. This mural is also located in Harlem. And honestly, I don't know the subjects of this particular mural, and maybe you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't know who Dizzy Gillespie is. And that's okay. We don't have to know people to know that they existed and that they cared and that they created. And actually, as I walked through my own neighborhood, I noticed so many of the fingerprints that have been left. So many people and so many stories being told.
And so the question that we're asking here today is, what if this feeling could extend to software? What if we didn't abstract ourselves away, what if in this room we left more space to leave our fingerprints on the products that we are all building?
And for us at the Browser Company, it starts with people. It's in the small details, like this card from our onboarding, that makes people feel seen and a part of our own journey. You see, when you're building products that people use every single day, it's important to take a minute to just let people know that, hey, this is different, and it's worth learning, but also, this is for you. And our personalized membership card was just about that. Actually, below the name, it included a very ambitious title that was auto-generated and unique for every single individual. Christina's card here, who is a friend of our company and an amazing designer, hers was Imaginary Guide. On my card, it actually says, Lofty Dreamer. Nash, what does yours say?
Mine says statuesque dreamer, which is why we are friends, Karla.
Okay, friend.
Never work friends.
But this is what it means for us to start with people. But the design of this card was also inspired by people. This is my dad, and I love this photo because, I mean, like, he just looks so cool, right? We don't take photos like this anymore. And sometime in the 70s, early in my dad's career, he worked at a data center. And he would take these punch cards, these actual punch cards, and input programming language into the mainframe. Now, our programming language has very much evolved now. We certainly don't use punch cards anymore. But my dad, he kept a few of these. And I imagine that for him, it was a reminder of a time. And so as we were thinking about our onboarding, our ARC onboarding, I thought about these punch cards. And I thought about how my dad had kept them around. And I wondered, what would it feel like if we also gave people something special with ARC? And so through these punch cards and through my dad, these inspired our own ARC membership card, even in some of the small, tiny design details, like the way that the date stamp is styled at the bottom left-hand corner, showing the day that you started your journey on ARC. Or even the typography, very bold and large, mirroring the fonts and the typography that we often see on punch cards. And so then, when we zoom out, this actually is what it looks like for our members to feel seen and for us to see them.
And this is a small card, a membership card. Maybe some folks in here remember theirs. It is something that was an experiment, really, right, Karla? And yet, in the first couple of days, weeks, months that we started releasing ARC, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of individuals shared these cards publicly, sharing their moment and their arrival to ARC. And so, if there's anything to take away here, it isn't membership cards are the route forward, but it's that you can't be afraid to start from your own experiences. You can't be afraid to bring small pieces of yourself, because you never know, and somebody might just see themselves in your product in meaningful ways. And so this is just one example of what it can mean to start with people. Number two, look outside of technology. And this is maybe my favorite. We have a saying at the Browser Company that you can't build something new and different if you're only looking internally. You can't push boundaries if you're only taking inspiration from within this industry. And so it might be a crazy thing to say at a big, massive, brilliant technology company and technology conference, but I've come to find, and I think Karla will agree, that sometimes the best products, brands, stories really pull from outside of technology. And that can mean getting inspiration from something like the movie studio A24 or the creative agency PG Lang, a personal favorite. And sometimes looking outside of technology feels something like this. This is a painting that I am lucky enough to see every time I Zoom Karla on a weekly and sometimes daily basis. It is a painting that she and her small daughter Gigi created. They're both women of many talents. But it's also a thread that we began to pull when we were approaching our branding for our AI suite of features that we launched in October of 2023. And if you'll remember, fall 2023 kind of felt like the peak of AI fatigue, which we now know is kind of just wave one. And we were kind of late to the ball in thinking about how we would integrate AI into Arc, in part because we had our own skepticism. And so when we were approaching the branding, we really wanted to think long and hard about how this could feel different, how it could maybe feel more human. And for that, you have to look outside of technology.
And so looking at the earliest sketches of how we wanted to brand Arc Max, we thought about everyday objects that visually encapsulated the idea of achieving one's best and pushing yourself to the fullest extent. Because Arc Max was all about elevating your experience on the internet and doing maybe some of those small but meaningful things on your behalf. And so we thought far and wide of what these objects could be. And we thought about shoes and balloons and mountains and weights. And ultimately, we landed on flowers. You see, I have a garden that I absolutely love tending to. And seeing it ebb and flow with the seasons reminded me of the sense of achievement that we wanted to offer our ARC members. And so we began to think, what if AI felt actually more like flowers than sparkles? And what if it actually had seasons and blossoms as its applications were evolving? And so the brand started to take shape from there, revolving around flowers. And we even extended that to things like the settings panel, that softness and personality, because this was going to be everyone's first interactions with Arc Max. And so from the naming to the branding, to the settings panel and the other UI, these were small traces of a garden in Harlem. Ways to bring your outside in, especially when you're working in new technology that can oftentimes feel very separate and sterile.
And finally, tell the story that scares you the most, or our approach to storytelling at the browser company. Bringing Arc into the world in an industry, in a category that has just a few key players, and which is often more about utility than personality, we had to think about how we wanted to carve out our space or how we wanted to find our voice. And there's a sentence that we come back to often, which is, what can we do that others can't do? Or what can we do that others won't do? And at the root of it is often sitting with what is true to us at that one point in time, because no one can do better than you the thing that is true to you. And so it's not for the faint of heart, but often our approach to storytelling has been telling the story that scares you the most. This is a reference point for our team, a reference point from me. It is a still from this show, I May Destroy You, strongly recommend. And more specifically, it's a still of Michaela Cole, who is the creator, writer, producer, lead actress. And it was a really personal story that she told and won an Emmy for it. And in her speech, she had some words for writers. She said, "Write the tale that scares you the most. Don't be afraid to retreat from the world for a while and see what comes in the silence." And so for us, as we've been thinking about our approach to stories, leaving our fingerprints on stories, what is true to us, it has meant sometimes telling the story that scares us the most and being authentic, being human, and being vulnerable. To ground that a little more, I'll walk us through a couple of quick examples. This is a still from one of our announcements earlier this year, our Act 2 video. It was a chance to share our vision for ARC, which is scary in and of itself. And you might recognize this kind of setting. It is black t-shirt, black background, big dreams, a keynote. And it didn't just feel like us. For us, being authentic in that moment meant something that felt a little more like this, which is a small diner in LA, the city where our CEO, Josh, grew up, and sitting down with a couple of our members to share what we hope to bring to the world with ARC versus a big audience, which just didn't feel true at that point in time. Telling the story that scares you the most sometimes looks like this. This was our release of our ARC Max features, and that this was a time when everything felt so large and big and world-changing for AI, and what felt true to us was inverting it and actually paying attention to the small details, the small ways of improving someone's day-to-day, something that felt like sharing cookware in a QVC TV show, Human. This is Nate and Abby. We're very grateful for their participation. And finally, sometimes telling the story that scares you the most looks something like this, which is not high production. It's a photo booth and a graph of a moment that was pretty scary for any growing company. We had a build that went out, which had some crashes, and we saw our growth just flatline for a week. And rather than deal with this internally and do it behind closed doors, we brought it to our members and brought this vulnerability, and really in that moment told the story that scared us the most of the people building ARC with us.
And lastly, telling the story that scares you the most. It goes back to the people. It goes back to our team. It's Alexandra, pictured there in the top left-hand corner, answering all the hard questions about our Windows launch. It's Omar, pictured below her in the bottom left-hand corner, sharing design revs for a feature. Or it's Josh Lee at the bottom right-hand corner, who leads our video work, who's impacted our company in so many ways. It's all of their fingerprints being left on our product. And honestly, in the world of clean and controlled brands, it's about the people. And it's fun, and it's honest.
And it's real. Okay, so leaving fingerprints. As we close out with you all here today, we're going to travel to one last city, and I may be biased, but it is my favorite city. We're going to go 3,000 miles away across the pond to South London, one of the streets that I grew up on, and we're going to find the words of Zadie Smith, who is a writer from London as well. In her essay, Speaking in Tongues, she talks of this place, Dream City, and she says that it is a place of many voices where the unified singular self is an illusion. She says that citizens of Dream City don't use I because it feels too narrow and singular. Instead, they speak in we. And so I guess what we're asking here today is, what could it mean to build more products in we? What could it mean to leave more room for fingerprints?
And to recap for us, it starts with people. It's not being afraid to tell the story that scares you the most, but to bring your experiences.
It's looking outside of technology, because you can't build something new and different by only looking internally.
And it's telling that story that is human, authentic, and vulnerable.
It is giving 80-something people room to leave their fingerprints and create a product that feels lived in, cared for, caring, considerate. It's saying no to sterility sometimes, or all the time, and really it's asking what could be. So we hope that others in this room may take away something small and consider what it could look like to bring room for more of their teams to leave their own fingerprints.
Thank you all.
Thank you.